8 years ago, Brit and I had a negative six-figure net worth. We owed $120,000 to various banks, couldn't afford a home, and were constantly broke.
And fast forward to today, we have a positive six-figure net worth and are in a much better place financially. The first step in turning it around was saving $1,000.
And with this video, we hope to lay out some steps that you guys can take to get yourselves organized and in a place to start saving up $1,000 just like we did.
So why is getting into the habit of saving so important?
Yeah, well, you may have heard the phrase, it's not how much money you can make, it's how much money you can keep. And in our opinion, this statement is so true. It's the money that you can keep that gives you options for the future. It's the money that you can keep that allows you to have money set aside for an emergency. It's the money that you can keep that you can make grow into more and more money in the future, not the money that you're spending. So you can think about it this way. If you compare two people, let's say this person's earning $10 million a year, this person's earning $10,000 a year. If they're both spending everything that they're earning, so the guy who's earning $10 million a year is spending $10 million a year, and the guy who's earning $10,000 a year is spending $10,000 a year, they're both in the same place at the end of the year. They're both broke. Their balance sheet reads the same number at the bottom at the end of the year. It's zero. They have nothing left. They have no money set aside for an emergency. They have no money left over that they can invest for the future.
You want to be in a place financially where you have some money set aside just in case for emergencies. You also want to have money left over at the end of the month where you can invest and set it aside to grow year after year.
Not only does that give you peace of mind, but it also sets up your future to be one that's successful financially. If you invest $1,000 initially and can invest $1,000 year over year for the next 40 years after that, at the average S&P 500 return, by the time you're done, you're going to have somewhere between like $800,000 and $1 million. So with that being said, let's get into how you can save that first $1,000.
Step one is to determine your money in, and this is basically how much you're earning per month. Is it $1,000, $5,000, etc.? It's very important to do this first step, so that way you can have a baseline of how much money you earn.
And also you have a number that you know you can't spend more than that. If you work for somebody else, you may already know how much you're earning, but if you don't, basically what you can do is you can go back into your bank account and look at your previous paychecks or deposits, things like that. If for whatever reason that's difficult for you to do, you can always go to your employer and ask, hey, can I have a couple of my recent pay stubs? And then just take an average of those, and that's about how much you earn on a monthly basis. If you get paid bi-weekly, obviously you want to add up 2 pay stubs for the month, not just take the one. If you work for yourself, more than likely you already have an idea of what you make because you have to keep track of everything for tax purposes. But if you're unsure, what you can always do is go back in your accounting software, generate a profit loss statement for like the last 6 months to a year, and figure out your average monthly income. So for example, if your net income over the last 6 months was $12,000, that means you have an average monthly net of $2,000. So that's about the money you can count on after your business expenses are paid. And again, whatever that number is very important. I would suggest writing it down somewhere, like maybe at the top of a sheet of paper, and that way it's like you start with this much money, and then what we're about to do is going to go under that, and you can kind of like see how much you start with and then see what's next.
Which leads us to step 2, which is to determine your money out. This is basically the money that's leaving your bank account or how much you're spending every month. These are things like your rent or mortgage, utilities, gas, cell phone, etc. You just tally up everything you spend month to month.
So what you'll want to do is make a list of every single expense that you have. And I know that sounds kind of daunting, but it's very important. And you'll want to separate those expenses into 2 categories. One is things you need to spend money on, basically to keep yourself alive. And then the second category, things you want to spend money on, things that you don't need to keep yourself alive. So, for example, as Bernie said before, rent or mortgage, utilities, food, those would be things that would be considered needs, or like maybe car repairs, things like that, medical expenses. Things that would be considered wants would be like going to Starbucks or McDonald's for breakfast 15 days out of the month, a night out on the town, a road trip to the beach, a $3,000 dinner with friends where you play credit card roulette at the end of it to see who pays the bill. So you can track these expenses in 2 ways, and Brittany and I would actually recommend doing both of these. Number 1, you can go back into your bank account again and look at all of your expenses over the last month. That's one way, or you can even extend that out into like the last 2 or 3 months if you really want to get an exact number.
Yeah, that'll actually give you a better average of how much you're actually spending.
The second way is you can just track your expenses from here moving forward for like 30 days and just kind of write everything down as you spend money. That's kind of what Brittany and I do, but we've kind of gotten into a groove of doing this. Again, we would recommend doing both of these at the same time just because That would give you a much better idea of exactly how much money you're spending every month. It's a lot of work, and if you don't have the time or the patience, the easier way to do it would probably just be to keep track of everything you spend from here, like for the next 30 days. There are also some apps that you can use, like Mint.com and EveryDollar, that make this much easier. I think you just connect it to your bank account, and it pretty much monitors what you're spending money on. And even, I think some of those even like categorize spending. The purpose of all this is, again, like your income at the top, all these expenses below that, and that way what you're kind of doing is listing everything out as like, all right, this is how much you have coming in, and then all these things below it are the things that you have going out. And the objective is to have more money at the end of the month than you're spending. So for example, if you earn $4,000 a month and you spend $3,000, you have an extra $1,000 at the end of the month. This is actually how Brittany and I budget every month, and we have a budget template that we've used for a long time. It's free to download. If you want to use it, check it out. Link in the description, totally free, no email address required. It should help get you started with all this.
So both of these are really important because it leads to step 3, which is to cut your expenses and raise your income if needed. So if you don't know how much you're bringing in and how much is going out, you won't be able to cut these expenses if you need to.
So within this step, there could be different scenarios playing out depending on your individual circumstances. So analyze your money. If you're spending less than you're earning, that's good. You're in the green, and we'll get to what you should do next in a minute. If you're spending more than you're earning, then that means that you're losing money every month. And what Brit and I would recommend doing is cutting out every single thing that you want to spend money on every month. Just cut it all out. That's a little bit on the extreme side.
That's very extreme.
That's pretty much what we did at the beginning of our process. So if that's too extreme for you, if that's kind of over the top, then just take a look at everything that you're spending money on that you want to spend money on, and figure out, okay, how many things out of this category can I just cut out? And have a little bit of money left over at the end of the month to start saving.
And you may or may not be in the same situation we were when we saved our first $1,000, but the reason we had to be so extreme with it is because we did not have a lot of income coming in.
Another situation you could be running into is that your needs, the things you need to spend money on so you can live, cost more than you're bringing in. If this is the case, the first thing Brittany and I would recommend doing is taking another look at your needs and just making sure that they are needs. So for example, if you're listing McDonald's breakfast on there 10 days a month as a need, it's probably not a need. So needs are, again, like things you just need so you can live. So food, water, shelter, utilities, gasoline, to and from work, things like that. Just the bare necessities. If that's not the case, it may be time to make some decisions for your life. Maybe some of those being, do you need to get a better job, a job that pays more? Do you need to get a second or third job? Maybe a side hustle? Do you need to ask for a raise? Do you need to move to a place that's less expensive to live? So for example, if your rent's like $2,000 a month, would it be feasible to move to somewhere that costs $1,000 a month? Those are things that you're gonna have to decide.
This leads us to step 4, which is to put every last dollar into a savings account and don't touch it. This was especially hard for me when I was first getting started. So after you've determined how much money is coming in, how much money is coming out, and what's left over, you can put all of this into your savings account.
And it really helps to pay yourself first. So for example, if you get paid on Thursday, on Friday you may think of transferring a certain amount of money from that paycheck over to savings so it's there, and that way you pay yourself first and you make sure that I'm paid, that money's there, I'm working to my goal, and I'll get there eventually. And then from what's left over, pay all of your other expenses. And from this, you can actually calculate how long it's going to take you to save your first $1,000. So as another example, let's say you get paid $4,000 a month, and you've calculated that you can save $1,000 a month. Well, in that case, it'll take you 1 month to save $1,000. Well, let's say you make $4,000 a month, but your expenses are $3,500 a month. Well, in that case, you can only save $500 a month, so it'll take you 2 months to save $1,000. And from this, if you want to speed things up, you can look at other ways to like cut things out, or maybe look at other jobs you can get part-time, maybe do something on Fiverr or drive for Uber or something like that. It's really up to you. And this, you guys, will be the glorious beginning of your path to financial freedom. So with that being said, those are Bernice and my 4 steps to saving $1,000. We really hope this video provided you some value. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. It helps out the YouTube algorithm tremendously.
Also subscribe for more, and you can check us out on Instagram at It's Mike and Brit. We post there every now and then.
Yeah, and don't forget, if you want to look into our budget template, again, link below, totally free. And with that being said, we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
The first step in all that,
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
they have no money saved for an emergency, and they have zero money they can do anything with. Bless you.
I couldn't hold it.